But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another live show of 49er Faithful UK Live. I am Nick Ludlam.
I am Paul Hope.
That's it. Now we've got that little pause out of the way. It's here. It's regular season time. There is no more warm-ups. There is no messing about. It is all focused in on one thing, that is week one against the Steelers. Guys, we made it. It's official. We've made it. It is in season time. So before we get into everything, though, Paul, mate, how's things been?
Well, mate, there's been not much to talk about since me and you last went live. I think this is the first 49er Faithful UK show pod since some news broke, Nick. And I'm still trying to digest it, and I will share. So when you ask the question, how am I don't think I've fully recovered yet, Nick. The news that we're all talking about, of course, is that trade, Trey Lance, QB 1, 2, or 3, depending on which side of the fence you run, was traded to the Dallas Cowboys. The news, unfortunately, for us on this side of the pond, broke just after midnight as I was trying to switch off for the night, get ready to go to bed, and then my phone went crazy, mate. So how are you? Because I don't think I've recovered from that yet, buddy.
Yeah, it came out of the blue. I didn't expect it. I don't think many people did, to be honest with you. Like you said, it was just past midnight. I was just about gearing up for the last preseason game, that 3 a.m. kickoff. What a horrible time for a kickoff for a game in the UK. But it's happened. You know, Trey is not a Niner anymore. He's now one of them. And that's how they will be referred to. But yeah, other than that, it's been a good week, really. You know? So come on in, Paul. Let's get into it. What do you want to chat about first, then, buddy?
Well, as Mr. Gowland puts there, we'll be finished the popcorn by the time the show starts. Now, to be fair, Nick, I was quite chuckling earlier today on my lunch break at work when we were tagged in a post, me and you, when one of the faithful said, surely you and Nick won't be going live at 8 p.m. on roster cut down day. And I was chatting to Tracy about it, and I was like, we have to go live. I mean, as we stand at the moment, 3 minutes past 8 in the UK, the Niners have made no news of cuts. Now, this is your challenge at home, everybody. Please do let us know as soon as any news breaks. Me and Nick do have our phones ready, but obviously anything that breaks, let us know. But I think we have to start with the Trey Lance news, Nick. Before I get your thoughts, I'll set the scene. When we traded up for Trey Lance, we were sat at number 12 in the draft. And then when we made the deal, there was all these names and rumours flying around. And I remember the 49er Faithful UK set up a Zoom room, and we all stayed up to watch the draft. Now, dependent on which room you were in, there was a bit of a delay. And my earliest memory is Mr. Gowland mouthing to the camera, Mac Jones, and Najee going mental because he thought we'd traded up to take Mac at 3. And I have a friend who was a Packers fan, and he'd text me on the night of the draft saying, is it true that the Niners have tried to trade for Aaron Rodgers? And I wanted to start there because for as much as Trey Lance, it dominated 49ers social media, I think when you look back into it, it was doomed from the start. It was doomed from that very start. The fact that 3 minutes before the draft, we tried to go for Aaron Rodgers. They didn't seem to know who they really wanted. And for all those people who've bought Trey Lance merchandise, I do feel for you. I mean, this time last year, Nick, my friends who were non-Niners fans used a stick to beat me. I did a couple of shows, a couple of podcasts last year, and I was banging the drum for Trey Lance because that's what the team were telling us, mate. Kyle Shanahan, this time last year, was telling us that this kid was QB1. The Band-Aid had been ripped off. And I'm a homer. I'm a 49ers fan through and through. I always bleed red and gold. And for me, I got fully behind my quarterback. But when the news broke that Trey was traded, to me, those draft picks have gone. And I know I've seen people, Nick, talk about the Dolphins used it to get Tyreek Hill and to get this player and to get that player. For me, the draft is a bit like your fantasy football draft. Sometimes you go in with a plan. Sometimes you get punched in the face. It doesn't quite happen. My mate, who's a Cowboys fan, has suddenly had a bit of an about turn, and Trey Lance is now the greatest thing in the world, where this time last week he was giving me a little bit of stick. But we have to start with the Trey Lance news, mate. I think, given the fact that we haven't done a show on the 49er Faithful UK since the news broke, we have to start here, don't we?
Yeah, it's the biggest trade of the summer. You know, you're talking about a quarterback playing for the greatest franchise in the history of the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers. You know, anything involving a quarterback with us is always going to be big news. You know, we are the team of Joe Montana. We are the team of Steve Young. There's been some pretty big names down the years that have played for us. Even when you go back into history, the likes of John Brody, Y.A. Tittle, you have some fantastic quarterbacks. So if you are a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, you are going to be under scrutiny from the very first second you join this team. So whenever anything happens with a quarterback for our team, it's going to be big news. Now, we all know it has dominated our Niners Twitter, Niners social media in general since before he was drafted. Like I said, there was the whole thing about Mac Jones. There was the whole thing with Justin Fields, who is going to be that number 3 pick. And I mean, I know you say those picks are gone. I think it's fair to say the Dolphins won that trade. We gave the Bears fans enough shtick when we managed to get all of that for them to move up one spot. So I think we've got to take what's coming to us now. This has happened. It sucks. I hate losing a player that we thought was going to be amazing. There's still every chance that he could be. We haven't seen the full Trey Lance yet. You know, the guy's the unluckiest guy in football. We've said this on the show many times. The poor guy just seems to just have disaster after disaster follow just behind him for some reason. But he's not a Niner anymore. So as far as his future is concerned, I don't really care. The only ones I care about are the players that are still on this team, that are still wearing red and gold, and will be lifting the Lombardi in February. You know, that's all that really matters to me. We've said this on the show again many times as well. I don't care about the names on the back of the jersey. I don't. You know, whoever leads us to number 6 leads us to number 6. I don't care if Sam Darnold's the quarterback in the Super Bowl and he wins it. That'd be amazing if he won it. I'd celebrate just as much if it was anyone else. Anyone who isn't celebrating because their choice of quarterback isn't winning, you're not really a fan. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about being a fan, not holding the team accountable. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, that whole situation. But then to only lose him for a 4th, that burns a bit. I don't know what you think on that, with what we got back for him.
I mean, I think at this point, first of all, when you were chatting there, and I was catching up on the comments, so first of all, Neil, I'm going to hide your comment because we'll get back to it, but that is the first bit of news. So first of all, Nick, what I wanted to say is, you've touched upon it there. Certain people on social media want to be so right, they'd rather see the team suffer. And me and you said this time last week, I'd come on here every single week and be wrong as long as the Niners win. First and foremost, team first. We want the Niners to win. Like you said, every team in the NFL at this time of the season is looking at the Lombardi. Well, possibly not the Cardinals and the Rams. We'll get into that. But for me, Kyle Shanahan got a lot of heat for playing it safe. And we decided to be aggressive and we jumped up in the draft. And the plan was to be in win now with a rookie QB and a rookie QB contract. Now, we'll get onto the Brock Purdy stuff, but at the moment, that model is still in place. In fact, you could argue it's better because Purdy was taken in the 7th round and he doesn't actually count against the salary cap, which is important. The money side of things, I was watching Steph Sanchez earlier, and she was reminding me of all the players that we've paid. And once the Bosa deal goes through, some people are sniffing at the savings that Trey Lance will save. So Dallas, for them, it's a no-brainer. They've got a QB that was potentially going to be our franchise QB for a fourth round and $6 million guaranteed. For the Niners, the distraction's gone away now. I can't believe we're sat here without Jimmy G or Trey Lance's QBs. 49ers Twitter has come full circle. But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch went after who they perceived to be their guy. And like you said, Nick, he's been unlucky. I mean, for me, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, they're probably the two teams I don't want to see do well in the NFL. Probably the Packers. And the fact that Lance has gone there, what I want to say is I wish that young man every success in the future. He was great when he was here. There was never any negativity come from the guy. However, not against the Niners and not at our detriment. But for me, I can see why the team have moved on from him. We did the 49er Faithful UK pod last Wednesday. We did it early for once. We did it at 5:30. We just spent an hour debating why Trey Lance should be QB2. And Kyle Shanahan came out about 2 minutes after we'd finished recording and said that Sam Darnold was QB2. Now, in that podcast, Nick, Najee had said to me, "What's your thoughts on Sam Darnold?" And I'd gone, meh. And I still stand by that. Sam Darnold has not done anything that makes me feel confident. Now, I am hoping that, like the other franchises in the NFL, they don't talk about the backup quarterback. My friend who's a Packers fan just knows Jordan Love. He doesn't know anybody else. Buffalo Bills fans know Josh Allen. The Chiefs know Patrick Mahomes. But for us, because of the injuries, because of the fact that we've had this QB controversy, it tends to be an issue. I mean, I'll go on record now and say with the 53 man, I hope we only carry 2 QBs. I'd let Allen go because to me, there's going to be another quarterback that you can pick up. I'd rather keep somebody else on the roster as it stands today than Brandon Allen and go into the season technically with Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold. But that's just how I'm feeling at the moment. But I just hope we're not having to sit here in a few weeks' time and talk about Sam Darnold as QB1. What's your thoughts on all that? Because like I said, last week it's well documented what I said. Go out there and listen to the pod. And I still stand by it. That's a great thing about doing something like this. You know, you go on there, you put your take out there, and then 30 seconds later, Kyle Shanahan says, "All right, lads, everything you've just done now, I'm going to rip up."
Out the window. Out the window. This is it. I mean, let's be honest. We were talking about it earlier on in the week. Do we delay the show a little bit? Try and see if we can get some of these roster cuts into the show. As whatever we do, it's probably going to come out 5 minutes after we finish anyway. So we might as well just crack on as normal, really. It is a weird state of affairs. I don't know. I just never saw him going. I thought the team were better off with Trey as QB2. You saying about Sam Darnold at QB1 it still pushed shivers down my spine. I'll never really believe that Sam did actually beat Trey out for QB2. I don't believe he is the better quarterback. They've chosen Sam, I think, on the basis he's got the higher floor, not the higher ceiling. We know that Trey has the higher ceiling. Everyone in football knows that. But I suppose that experience maybe just counted for Sam that little bit more. You know, they didn't have to worry about any sort of developmental stuff. Sam's got his flaws. We know this. Heck, there's 1,000,001 memes online about his flaws. But at least you know what you're getting. And he is and Sam Darnold is he's more alike to Brock Purdy than Trey is. So then there's less need for moving around with the likes of the playbook, the play calls, how you're going to run in certain situations. They can keep a little bit more to plan with Sam there. There's that really old saying, if you've got a plan B, are you really all in on plan A? And I suppose Trey was that plan B with this game being so different. You know, you'd have to basically be practicing plays that otherwise are not going to be used, or you're actually hoping you never use because you don't want your QB1 going down, which is a weird state of affairs. So, like I said, it's a distraction that we no longer have. It's one that is going to be hotly debated probably for years to come. Because in realistic terms, we're probably not going to know what the outcome of what Trey really can be for years to come. But then how long is he going to be sat behind Dak? Can he beat Dak out? They've got the whole controversy at the moment when Jerry Jones traded for Trey, but never told Dak and never told his head coach. And they're talking, oh, shouldn't you have told him first this, that? Well, the guy's the GM and the owner. It's Jerry Jones. You really think Jerry Jones is accountable to anyone other than himself? He's just going to do whatever he feels like regardless. But that's their issue now. That's not us. So I'm fine with it.
Such a shame there's some disharmony amongst the Cowboys thanks to the Niners. But, I mean, I've seen some wild takes that the Cowboys are going to have to Trey because they want to see Kyle's playbook because we've defeated them in the last 2 playoff games. But to me, in the modern era and the amount of tape breakdowns that you can see, it's not a surprise what Kyle Shanahan does. So I'm not agreeing with that take. And Simon's put there, how can he be considered so good a couple of years ago and then QB3 now? The NFL, Simon, you could argue stands for the not for long league. Obviously, when they made the trade, they believed in him. The fact that he broke his finger was ironic, given that one of the knocks on Jimmy was his injury. And then obviously this time last year, his first start was in a monsoon, which we were all at Leeds watching. And then he got injured against the Seahawks game. And like you said, I feel sorry for Gareth. So when we did the pod back when the draft was done, Gareth was allocated Trey Lance and he did a real deep dive into Trey Lance. And obviously he was his boy. My friend Mike, who's a Rams fan, I've said this many a time, Nick, he texted me on the night of the draft and was like, Trey Lance is going to be dangerous in your offense. And I think we've said it before. We all want a Patrick Mahomes. We all want a Josh Allen. Yeah. We all want a Justin Herbert, a Joe Burrow. We haven't got that. Trey Lance didn't pan out. It's one of those things. So you could say he's been lucky, Simon. El Presidente has pointed out we could have took Micah Parsons and Kayleen Phillips with 2 of the picks we traded. Yeah. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we, stayed at 12 and you look at the trajectory, I remember a couple of years ago when we got Nick Bosa at 2 and there was a lot of talk, should we go for Williams, who was at the Jets? And when Kyle and John took over, we could have had Patrick Mahomes. And there's all this would have, could have, should have. It makes for a good would you rather, Mr. Gowland. But let's just have a little look. I
think this is why you have the
at the moment. But he just said he called it from the beginning. So Jay was one of Jimmy's biggest supporters. The reason I put that comment up there is Neil Watson, who's a good friend of the show. He put out a rather nice tweet because he was Jimmy's biggest fan. And I don't think any of us wanted the Trey Lance era to end in this way. I put Wayne's comment up earlier. I know he'd bought a full-sized helmet from our friend Kev Pittman. And like you said, it was ironic that the news broke for us in the UK in the middle of the night, for want of a better word. I had no plans on watching that Chargers game, but I couldn't switch off after the Trey Lance news broke. So
that's true.
Let's just have a little look. Anything else you want to say on Trey Lance, Nick, before we move on? Or...
No, I mean, I know obviously Lee said about who we could have taken with the picks there. I think there's a danger that you can't judge a draft class on one pick. We have to look at it as a whole. That's the only thing I think I'd want to add to that. You look at who else was taken that year. Number 1 picks don't pan out sometime. But we've had some phenomenal luck down the draft repeatedly down the years. So, if you're gonna have a go at them for one draft pick, you've got to give them the credit for the ones they do hit on. And we do hit on more than what we fail. So I'll take that every time.
I did just want to say before we move on to more current topics, regards to Sam Darnold, I've seen, rightly so, some content creators pointing out that they were at training camp. They didn't see what Kyle Shanahan saw. But training camp, as Kyle has said, is only a small part of that. We're not in the room breaking down tape. We're not seeing what they're seeing. And I read an article on The Athletic, which actually surprisingly pointed out that Darnold in the preseason games, if you take away a lot of the drops, he'd actually protected the ball quite well. And I made a joke last week, Nick, that Sam Darnold, you could argue, is Kyle Shanahan's dream quarterback. And I said it tongue-in-cheek, whether Kyle was listening, because he came on straight after the pod and was like, he's QB2. So maybe I spoke that into existence. But The backup
It's your fault.
quarterback debate will never go away. One thing I will say to end it off, this time last year, we had Jimmy G as our backup quarterback. And in my opinion, Jimmy's better than Sam. So you could argue the QB room is a lot weaker. I have enjoyed watching all the tape breakdowns on Brock Purdy since the weekend. And just got to say, in Brock, we trust. I'm not saying he's elite. I'm happy going into the season with him as QB1. If you'd blindfolded someone from the NFC Championship game, not let them watch any football, watch any social media, and then showed them the Chargers game, and then said, oh, by the way, that kid fractured his elbow, tore his ACL, they wouldn't believe you. Now, that to me is unbelievable, buddy. What's your take on that? Because to me, he looks better and better every time I see him.
Well, this thing, I mean, for weeks and weeks and weeks, I've been saying I did not expect Purdy to be playing week 1. I didn't expect to see him back until week 3 or week 4. I was fully expecting Trey to be the starter week 1. I was. So for him to be back and he's not had any setbacks and he's looking good. He's looking sharp. He looks like he's picked up from the divisional round. And that's all you can really ask of the young man, to be honest, at this point. Now it's about, let's see how he can move forward. Let's see what he can do. Let's see if he really does have that dog in him. Let's see if what Trent Williams said about him was correct. Let's see how dialed in this young man really is. And let's see if he go and win that Lombardi.
I think what Simon is missing here, and he doesn't disagree with what you said, but we went through a number of QBs last year. Should it happen again, who's QB3? But I think what you need to remember, Simon, is when they broke the news to Trey Lance, apparently he didn't handle it so great. He took the day off, and then he came back an hour later and asked to be traded. And at that point, I don't think the team expected to get a 4th and get his contract off the books. So I think it moved rather quickly. And I think Kyle and John have been on record to say that they like to look after players. Look at Jimmy. A lot of people were calling for us just to cut Jimmy. The team stood by him. And I think as an organisation, we've done well by those players. I promise me and Mr. Gowland have not been in contact. So my hot take about Allen, for me, I can't see another team coming for him. So I wouldn't put him on the 53-man roster because I think he makes it to the practice squad. And if he does get picked up by someone else, like Sudfield did last year, I think there's plenty of other people kicking about. I mean, McCoy's just been released by the Cardinals. Could he be a viable QB3 option once you go through the roster cuts? Alec, please stop with these outrageous takes. We've warned you a couple of weeks ago that you might get banned. We don't want to ban somebody, honestly.
Flag in the chat.
So the chat, there's some wonderful faces in there, which is great to see. So I am trying to slowly catch up with the chat on here. Mr. Gowland put another bit of news there. Anthony Miller has been released. Now, Tay Martin, which Neil Graham put up earlier, and Lee Gowland there has put Anthony Miller. I think they're two names, Nick, that you may see come back in the next couple of days. Obviously, we've got some injuries, which we will touch upon. And I think that's what's making the 53-man roster very difficult at the moment. Everybody wants Bosa to be paid. Me and you had a conversation via DMs, via Twitter, via Facebook. I forgot what medium because we shared it. But Bosa's not signing today because, like you said, he counts as an extra roster spot. Yeah. Because
there's no way he's signing today.
About that. Let's have a little look, catching up. So,
and as for Tay Martin, I'm surprised he was still on the team after that other preseason game. And I thought he was abysmal. To be honest, I'd be surprised if he does make the practice squad.
Yeah. So we've been asked what time is the 53-man officially announced. My understanding was it has to be done in the next 35 minutes.
It has to be submitted to the league in the next 53 minutes. But whether or not they announce it to us in that time frame is a whole different thing. So,
well, that's why you said earlier, Nick, when I was catching up on the comments and I was just checking there was no news. That's why we haven't postponed tonight's show, because the Awesome Foursome will be back at some point this week to do a bit of a deep dive. We've established our Tuesday show. We did hope for a cheeky message off Kyle and John, but no, we're coming. But as Lee's put there, 9 p.m. for you guys across the pond, or 2100, as we refer to it on this side. Until I got into this game, Nick, of doing podcasts, I didn't realise that some of the American friends weren't fully up to date with the time. So sometimes I'd be trying to arrange to do a pod with Ted Talks Ball, and I'd drop 9 o'clock like that, and he'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And it wasn't until I clicked on. That's why we've converted back to the PM times. Let's have a little look. I think they're all chatting to each other in the chat. So, Nick, Chargers preseason game. Probably the most boring, meaningless game, given the news of Trey Lance. But you stayed up for the game. Am I right in thinking?
I did. I haven't missed a game now, preseason or regular season, in coming up to nine years. So there was no way I was going to miss it, regardless of what time it was on. Thankfully, it fell so that it was day off of work the following day, so I didn't have to worry too much. But everything was dominated by the Trey Lance trade. You know, I wanted to see how was Brock looking. Brock looked good. Happy with that. The result really didn't matter, because, as I say, the result only really would have mattered, to be honest, if Trey had been playing. But he wasn't. He wasn't even a Niner at that point, so the result was completely irrelevant. It was just, again, about seeing the players get better. And that's it. And they did enough. They weren't great. By any stretch of the imagination, they weren't great. You've got to remember, this was the Chargers' second team. They played no starters at all that day. So, to be honest, it was a bit of a null thing. And like I said, I spent most of my evening talking with other people about Trey Lance. You know, we got out of the game relatively unscathed. Obviously, the injuries have stacked up quite significantly this week. It looks like the only real nasty one, though, is Danny Gray. That's the only one who's really going to be out for a significant period of time. There's obviously the situation with Latu as well, but now that Bosa's holding out, weirdly, it actually helps us, so we can redshirt him and still bring him back. So, yeah, it was a bit of an anticlimax Friday night, Saturday morning.
I mean, I don't stay up for the preseason games because I never miss a regular season game. I do all the podcasts. Tracy puts up with a lot. And I didn't want to change the habit. I was awake when the game started, but I decided not to watch it because, like you said, the Trey Lance news dominated everything. I know we're jumping all over, so bear with us. I don't believe we will go into the season, Simon, with 2 QBs. What I mean is, for the 53-man cut down, I think at the moment we take a risk on Allen. I know Cubs, who's joined us again, which we appreciate. I'm just talking from a Niners point of view. Of course, Allen isn't going to be happy if he's in the practice squad and his salary is about a fifth of what his contract would pay. And there is cheeky rumours the Bengals could be sniffing around. But for me, QB3, or possibly keeping hold of someone somewhere else. You talked last week about your crush on the O-line, Manning. There's a lot of noise about him making the 53. And I just think the reason we've not heard much, and I know news is trickling out now, is we have got a few injuries. We're half an hour in. We haven't even talked about the kicker, which I never thought would be such a big thing. Latu, I think at the moment, the team want to put him on season-ending IR, but Latu's gone for a second opinion. And you've got to remember, last year, we ran out of IR spots because you can only have so many of those. And the way you construct a 53-man roster, Kyle Shanahan himself has said the 53 that we announced today will change because it's the NFL. There's never a such thing as a final roster. Simon has heard that CMC will be kicking.
I wouldn't put him past it, and I wouldn't put it past it being actually really good.
Alex Simpson, we need a UK 49ers kickers competition, and we're joined by Luke, who's just got out of his Zoom class. But you mentioned Bosa there, and that was another name that I wanted to mention. Now, a lot of people are getting worried the Bosa deal hasn't been done. And I just want people to cast their minds back to TJ Watt. He held out 2021. He didn't sign until September the 9th. A lot of talk was he wasn't going to hit the ground running. He broke the sack record, or he led the league in sacks that year, if I'm remembering rightly. And I think Bosa's in a similar, for me, he's in a similar league, as in he keeps himself right, he keeps himself in shape. I will only panic if week 1 Borsa's not on that field. I believe if you listen to the likes of Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter and people who are much smarter than me, the Niners have made a substantial offer to Borsa. It's not like we've gone in and lowballed him. But I just think there's a case of the wait and the time. I think he wants to be paid. I've got no problem with that, Nick. He left it all out there last year. Defensive Player of the Year. He deserves to be paid.
Yeah.
But are you worried? Do you think
No.
you should be worried, or are you sharing my optimism that a deal's just going to get done and we just have to wait for it?
It wouldn't surprise me if it's literally just the language of the contract. They could very well have come to terms on what the amounts are going to be, where those amounts are going to happen, when they're going to be paid, how is the signing bonus going to be structured. It's going to be the language within the contract. I don't think we're far off. I'd be surprised if we hear anything. It's giving us a free roster spot that you can put Latu on IR and still be able to bring him back within 8 weeks. That's still there should anything happen. It gives us that free opportunity. We might as well take it. It'd be silly not to at this point, really. The league rules very rarely allow you a freebie. So when they give you one, take it. It's all well and good. The fact that we have that additional roster spot, I wouldn't be surprised if we use that. Well, we could use it anywhere realistically, but I'd be surprised if we only run with 2 QBs into the season, considering everything that's come beforehand. I don't see us going into the season with 2. It'll be 3. They're not going to want to risk losing Allen, I don't think. No matter how good or bad anyone may think he is, I don't think they're going to want to risk it. I think they'll just go for it. He is.
Rob's hearing that. I mean, I caught the tail end of the Chapman show earlier, and I think one of his comments was 5 years, 30 million a year. And John was like, I'll sign that now. If that's the deal on the table, I'll take it because that'll be cheap in 2 years' time. And I just think, like you said, there's all this talk of fully guaranteed in the years and the void years. There's a salary cap to take into consideration. So, like Simon's put there, I'm not worried. I would have liked it to have been done. But as soon as me and you were talking the other night, and like you said, you had that free roster spot, for want of a better word, it wouldn't surprise me if the news is announced in the next few days. Borsa doesn't do pre-season. A lot of talk, non-Niners fans, that we struggled in pre-season without Borsa, without CMC. Our backups didn't look great. And I just smile, Nick, because you don't win anything in pre-season. And the reason you have these pre-season games is you have all your backups on the field to see what you've got, to get them reps. There's some winners, there's some losers. I'm glad it's done. I'm glad we're moving on, like you said at the start of the show, meaningful football. I saw an interesting Instagram post earlier where some guy was getting his wife to sign a contract where she's not allowed to interfere with certain hours during the year. And I just looked at Tracy and she was like, I don't need no contract. I know. 6 p.m. Sunday till whenever. So I am excited. I'm excited for the first game of the season being a 6 p.m. game. Is there anything else, Nick, that we need to talk about other than the Chargers pre-season before we move on to the next schedule?
No, let's crack on, mate. Let's crack on with that schedule. Come on.
Let's have a look. So Alec has put there that he believes he's waiting for Chris Jones to sign his deal first. A good joke the other day. Jake Moody has to sit for a year behind number 10, a veteran, for a year to learn. So, yeah, history repeating itself. The only problem with that is they're both injured. So, kicker is where we're going to go. Jake Moody, there was a lot of heat, Nick, when we traded him. When we drafted him in the top 100, pick 99, third round. A lot of talk that he had to be pretty much Justin Tucker at that price. There was a lot of heat on that young man, but we can't lie. The kicker situation does look a little bit laughable at the moment. For all you people wanting Robbie Gould to be re-signed, there's no way Robbie Gould is picking up that thought in the Niners. And if he did, he'd want more money. And that was the issue with why we went cheaper at kicker. Lee has jumped in there. Qantas Knight has been waived. I think Oliver's contract might have came into play there. I think Lee talked about that in our DM group. where the cap hit for Oliver over the next couple of years could be quite high. And Lee agrees, talking in the chat. But going back to the kicker, I'm not going to worry, Nick, because I think Moody makes the roster and they bring someone in. Hopefully, no one like the bad memories you had with he who shall not be named. And I'm saying it out loud because Alex Simpson's going to drop the name in the chat. I know we had a couple of kickers in the other day, but I do think we have a short-term kind of sticking plaster. But I think Jake Moody makes the team. I think they gambled with Gonzalez. I think they were hoping a team would give us back a late draft pick because I've seen a couple of trades today with kickers. But for me, I see Gonzalez being released and I see Moody making the roster and then somebody being brought in to kick against the Steelers. What's your thoughts on the kicker situation, buddy?
It's not ideal. We've said it repeatedly over the off season how important having a good kicker is. We saw how important having a Robbie Gould is. When you look back at some of the other teams, how their seasons have ended because they didn't have a good kicker or from a botched field goal, even from short range. It hasn't worked how we thought it was going to work. But let's wait and see. They're going to have a plan. There's going to be a plan. They're not going to go into the season without a fully fit kicker. Unless they truly believe that Jake Moody is actually going to be ready for week 1, because he has got a fortnight. I think he's listed week to week. It's not like he's got something that's going to keep him out at least for 4 or 5 weeks at the moment. No, Alec. Go wash your keyboard out with soap.
The only saving grace we've got at the moment, Nick, is me and you don't know how to block people. That's the only reason Alec's still in at the moment. But interrupting the chain of thought, Simon is stealing my thunder. I've been on record with 14-3. I'm very optimistic of this season. Now, before I get your prediction on the season, we're not quite finished with the roster talk, people. So, Nick, last week you were gushing over your latest crush in Manning. I've seen a lot of people, including the legend that is Brad Graham, sticking up for your boy Manning. And I said, if Brad Graham says he's good, that's good enough for me on the O-line. But what's your thoughts after the Chargers game on the O-line backups? Because, again, I've seen some mixed signals on social media. Obviously, you watched the game. So where's your head at our backup O-line?
They weren't fantastic. But there's a reason why they're backups. If they were fantastic, they wouldn't be backups. They wouldn't be on our roster. They'd be starting somewhere else because we wouldn't afford to be able to have them. That's why they are what they are. Now, what we need to remember is you're never going to have an entire backup offensive line in an NFL game. Chances are there's going to be some injuries. Players are going to get hurt. It happens. It's the NFL. It is one of the most physical leagues in the world. But you're not going to put the entirety of that backup line in one go. They're going to come in spits and spats. There's going to be one dropping in a guard one week. There'll be one maybe in a tackle another week. Maybe a center drops in the week after. They're not coming in all together. They're going to get to play alongside the starters. So a lot of their weaknesses are going to be covered up by what's around them. So I want to see how they're playing once they start playing alongside your Trent Williamses, once they start playing alongside all the other guys that are in there, because that will hopefully raise their level up. That's what a great player is supposed to do, right? Raise up the players around him. So let's see what happens there. There wasn't any great players to raise them up during those preseason games. I wasn't expecting fireworks. None of us were ever going to, well, we shouldn't have been expecting fireworks at all. It is what it is. Let's go for it. These guys are going to be coming in bits and bobs. Hopefully, none of that comes through in the season itself. That's all you've got to hope for, realistically.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask the question because I think with the roster breakdown, and you think, 53. Tracy said to me earlier, why is today so important? Because I had it circled on the calendar, and I was like, well, at the moment, Tracy, we have 90 players on the roster, and we need to get down to 53. And then you start thinking, well, if you have 3 at quarterback, if you have 8 at offensive line. And I was looking at the list of the offensive linemen. And like you said there, a lot of people are forgetting that you got Trent Williams to come back in, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford. I think Faslanior from the New York Giants that we got him from free agent, he hasn't been great, but I see him making the roster. I've seen a lot of people wanting Zakel to be cut first, which obviously hasn't happened because other cuts are coming down the line. And I know the offensive line coach hasn't been pleased with Moore. There was a lot of high hopes for Moore, but overall, I think if you look around the league, Nick, I don't think any team in the NFL is happy with their backup offensive line.
No.
There's an abundance of backups around the league, and that's why the backups. And I seen a good quote where some backups are good for 10, 15 reps, but what you forget is in the pre-season, we've seen some of these players take all the snaps, take all the reps.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly worried. Moving on, defensive lineman. Now that is a position, Nick, that we tend to have quite a lot on the roster.
Yeah, we're going to stack
bread and butter. You reckon same this year?
Yeah, they're not going to change that. They're going to stack it. I can't see the new defense being so drastically different that plan will change.
Yeah. So Lee has put 20, get the brasso out. One of our friends from across the pond is asking what's brasso. There's Lee put there, trophy polish.
Trophy polish.
It's a bit of a joke on the 49er Faithful UK. So the year we went to the Super Bowl, Brian, who's one of the admin members, he said at the start of the season, we were going all the way. Get that brasso out. And kind of, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. And then the more we won, the more that run went. So I know where Lee's going with that. And I appreciate you there, Rob. I can't pronounce that name. I tried.
Feliciano,
it's not my strong point, but
it's Feliciano. I was going to let you go. It'd be all right. I was going to let you have that, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Luke has put here that the roster compared to recent Shanahan 49 rosters, great starters, less depth, might miss Jimmy Ward more than people realise. And I say that's a fair point, Luke. I do think overall we don't have the depth. But when you look at the starters, I mean, you look at the offence, and we're all gushing about the offence. I mean, we talked at length last week about Debo, how good he's looking. I saw a very interesting would you rather, Nick. Someone was asking on TikTok, would you rather have Debo? Would you rather have Ayuk? And I commented both, because it's not a would you rather we need to face this year. We've got both of them. So don't worry, mate. That is not this week's would you rather.
Now, there's no way you're letting me off that easy.
I did want to say to people, we weren't going to go down position group by position group. We tend to try and keep the show to an hour. However, given it's roster cut down day, we might jump around a little bit. But Nick, 43 minutes in, I do believe that we need to give these good people a distraction from refreshing Twitter, from being out there to see what the latest news is. So for those people who may be new, don't know where you've been, but we do a segment on this show called Would You Rather. It was Nick's idea. He's normally evil to me, as Simon will attest to. Last week, you threw a curveball, which was a new height of Would You Rather. I watched it back, and the look on my face when you did that. But so on that note, mate, I'm going to let you go first this week, because last week you threw me one hell of a curveball. So you're going to get to go first.
I threw nothing. I think you'll find that Would You Rather was care of Mike. Those was Mike's rules. I am a good boy. My mummy says so. And if you say otherwise, you call him my mummy a liar, which is just, it's just wrong, isn't it? Let's be honest. Okay, then. Would you rather time? Okay. There's the whole Nick Bosa contract situation going on, as we well know. So, Paul, your would you rather is heavily involved with Mr. Bosa. So you can have Nick come back. Niner for life. Not a problem. However, what that means is Brock ain't going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Or tomorrow the phone rings. Somebody's going to offer you. I mean, they're going to offer you a treasure trove. They're going to give you 4 first-round picks. And just as a little cheeky extra, and a 7th as well, just because it's Brock. So you're going to get all that back for Nick Bosa. You're going to lose him. But Brock Purdy's going to the Hall of Fame. So those are your options there, Paul. You can trade him, but guarantee that Brock never goes to the Hall of Fame. Or you can get rid of Bosa and guarantee that he is going. What do you reckon, Paul?
Well, I've got my screenshot for earlier, for later. There, Evil Nick returns. So I'm just going to screenshot me pointing that. I think I would rather try and pronounce this name on the screen from Mr. Gowland than answer that question in real life. I don't know whether he did or whether we have traded for him or not, or whether Lee just wanted to put that name
Eagles
on there.
Have traded. I thought he was cut.
I think he just wants me to say the name, Nick. But given that I have a Nick Bosa jersey, given that I have a signed Nick Bosa mini helmet, and given the 49ers record of first-round picks recently, as much as you go on about the Hall, Kyle Shanahan doesn't need a Hall of Fame quarterback to win that Super Bowl.
Okay.
I'm keeping Nick Bosa. We're still going all the way. And as Simon says, Evil Nick returns. And don't worry, Simon. It's all right. It's all love, buddy. I have to let him have his moment.
You've heard it here first. Paul is a Purdy hater. He's a Purdy hater. Look, it's all there. It's on camera. We've got you, Paul. We finally got you to come out of that closet, mate.
Well, I'm rocking me Bosa jacket. Sorry, my Purdy jacket. When this one bad boy landed and then Purdy started wearing it, I thought, So, Nick, I went down a different road for my Would You Rather this week. Given that it was roster cut down day, it's going to be a lot Niners heavy. Now, I saw an interesting tweet earlier. So, Deshaun Jackson is starting his own series, Pros versus Bros, where you can compete against him and other pro athletes in drills with chance to win awesome prizes. It got me thinking, would you rather? How could I fit that into Would You Rather? So, Nick, well documented that me and you have a flag football background. And you go to training week in, week out, and you do flag tackling drills, you do catching drills. Now, anybody who knows and has seen your footage knows you can be quite shifty on the football field. So my Would You Rather this week, Nick, Tabor Pepper, friend of the show, has thrown his hat into the ring. He's heard all about the 49er Faithful UK. He's got onto our good friend Nick Clark. So he will be the first opponent that you have to face. So you're going up against Tabor Pepper. If you win, the 49er Faithful UK gets an all-expenses-paid trip to the gold mine.
Nice.
Now, Nick, what you have to decide is, would you rather take Tabor on in a pass-catching drill, where he is the defender, and you have to catch a pass, or the 40-yard dash? There are your options. You're going up against the legend, that is Tabor Pepper. Now, if you lose, Tabor gets to pick a punishment of his choice. Now, he hasn't got back to me yet because this was a hastily put together Would You Rather. But there are your options, buddy. So where are you going with this one?
Okay, logic is the only way to, because either one I'm probably losing. In fairness, we're all probably staying at home. Now, he's a professional athlete. Chances are on the quiet he's going to be fairly shifty. I have multiple sclerosis, so I'm not all that shifty. So I'm thinking 40-yard dash might not be the way to go. Now, given that his job as a specialist is snapping the ball, it's throwing it away from him between his legs, I'm going to bet that his hands catching the ball aren't going to be as strong as his legs can shift him down a field. Going up against those defensive lines, they're strong lads. He's going to have to be a strong lad himself. So I think he's going to be deceptively fast. I'll go up against him in a catching drill with him as a defender. I think I've got more chance with that. I've still got zero chance, but I think that zero is slightly higher than the other zero, maybe.
I saw that tweet earlier and I just thought I'd have some fun with it because we have both been known to be a bit evil on this show. And I wanted to go back to the origins of having a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, a bit of a joke. Now, after last week's show, we did put a post out there, Nick, where we said if anybody wanted to join us on the show. So maybe my post wasn't clear, or maybe the people who watched the show didn't see the post. But what we're going to offer you good people is we want the 49er Faithful UK live fans to join us. You will need at least 20 minutes of your time on a Tuesday. We want you to hit me or Nick up in the DMs. We want you to come on, ask us your would you rather. You can ask it to me,
evil as you want.
Nick. You can ask it to both of us. And all we ask is that obviously when we agree it, we'll send you the link. You'll jump on. We go live at 8 p.m. So we'll get you on about 22. You come on, you ask you would you rather, and then we can have a bit of fun with that. If it is something that you're keen to do, as I said, hit me up in mine or Nick's DMs. We'd love to get you more involved because I'll be honest with you, when I'm preparing for the show, the would you rather sometimes takes a lot longer than what it should. Because and I'll share with you, Nick. Me and Tracy were preparing dinner earlier. She said, "You look distracted." I said, "I need a would you rather. The one I've got's not that great, and I need an evil one." And even she was like, "Come on, Paul. You can't be evil every week."
Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah. So, Simon, we would love to have a 49er Faithful UK flag game. The logistics we need to sort out. Kind of would like to have one at a meetup, but kind of not. Because when I'm going to the meetup, I want to spend time talking to people, getting ready for the game. But if we can make it happen, we will. We've got a few of us now.
That'd be pretty amazing.
We'll play flag football. I'm trying to think. I think I've caught up on the comments. So nobody's hit me up with any news, Nick, at the moment. I don't want to finish just yet because knowing our luck, we'll press end record and something will break.
I think it's going to be breaking all evening at this point, really, isn't it? Let's be honest. They're going to give us it in drips and drabs. There'll be little bits here and there, but they like to tease us. They like to tease us.
Yeah. So I do want to again give a cheeky shout out to ourselves. Please do follow on 49er Faithful UK on. I still call it Twitter. I don't care what Elon Musk calls it. It's Twitter to me. Yeah. We did hit 5,000 a couple of weeks ago. Some bots must have dropped off because the numbers have dropped down. So if you're not following us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, please do hit us up on there. If you haven't already, please do drop this video a like. If you're not watching live, please hit a comment. Please do share. Please do tell your friends about us. We are definitely trying to grow this channel of ours. Me and Nick love coming live on a Tuesday at 8 p.m. It's been fantastic to talk all things 49ers with you, buddy. Please do keep an eye out for the 49er Faithful UK pod team. It may not be the awesome foursome. We're having a bit of a difficulty all getting on the same page. It might be 3 of us. It might be 2 of us. But we will be back with a pod this week. And I think we'll be due to go next week with our season preview, our bold predictions. But yeah, the 49er Faithful UK, we're in full in-season mode now. As me and Nick said last week, no more breaks, is the buddy. No more breaks.
Not until we lift number 6.
Not until we lift number 6. Anything you've got going on, Nick, before we get on up out of here? Anything you want to promote? Or are you just plugged in to the 49er Faithful UK?
This is it now. Everything is about week 1. Absolutely everything is week 1. Let's get at the Steelers. Let's get the ground running. Let's go for it.
Well, Nick, I think all that is left for us to say is until next week, go Niners.
Go Niners, baby.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in our heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, G. Clark, Garrison Hurst, stiff arm.